Mayor Sullivan's had a tough couple years putting our city together financially. I won't steal his thunder, but invite you to pay attention to the fact that the municipality of Anchorage now has a AAA bond rating, and that didn't come by accident. That came by hard work on his part. But Mayor Dan Sullivan has led a life of community service from the very beginning, learning about city government the knee of his father, George Sullivan, who was mayor of this town for 13 years. Dan also served 3 full terms on the municipal assembly, and this is his second and final term as mayor. Prior to getting into the onto the assembly, he was the executive director of a very successful 1996 Arctic Winter Games, and more recently as a businessman, founder of McKinley's Pub downtown. So Mayor Dan has clearly been at the heart of the city for years. He's married to an incredible First Lady, Lynette. They have a daughter, Jennifer, who's married and living in Portland, Oregon. And last I heard from the mayor, there's no grandchildren yet. But be careful, Dan. So we'll welcome Mayor Dan to our podium with a round of applause, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For First Lady Lynette and I could really have no better role models as we became Mayor and First Lady than George and Brenda Warch, 2 of the most gracious human beings on the face of the earth, professional, kind, and again, if you ask Lynette, she would echo that sentiment that you just could not have had better mentors as we entered a new role in our life. So thank you very much, George. I'm gonna have to go fairly quickly. I've got a lot of information. I think we're down to like 18 minutes or something, and there's an awful lot to talk about. So first going to talk about the state of the city budget. We just introduced our budget to the Assembly. The budget, as you can see, in 2015, we're introducing a budget of $471 million, which is actually about $5 million less than last year's budget. Yes, in government, you really can introduce budgets that are smaller than the year before and not deteriorate services. In real dollars, it's actually 469 because that 471 includes some depreciation. So we're only going to be appropriating 469. And as you can see, the growth trend, had we continued on the same trend as when we came into office, and you've seen this chart before, I show it to you every year, we'd be about $100 million more in spending than we are today. And so that's one of the success stories is we've been able to maintain high quality of life, high quality of services, and literally have saved about $100 million in spending. The theme of today's speech really is investing in Anchorage, and we'll talk more about how not only in the private sector, but in the ability of you in approving bonds and the state and the grants they've given us have really given us an opportunity over the last nearly 6 years to make major investments in our community in all areas. The other thing we wanted to do when we came into office was not only just control spending, but make sure that municipal debt was on the right curve. We were incurring debt at a level where the annual debt service was becoming a pretty big hit to the city budget. We still obviously every year propose bonds that you have been very good at approving for the most part. If you look at the chart, that little orange part is the only bond that has been defeated during our tenure, and it lost by I think about 15 votes, and it included the library, the golf course, some of our public facilities. So almost a perfect record on bonds, and again, that's really reflects your commitment in supporting your own community. If we look at the financial results, as Mayor Warch mentioned, really some good success stories, and a success story that I share with really every municipal employee, particularly my department heads. 5 straight years with budget surpluses. I reported to you last year 4 straight years. In 2013, the end of 13 was another year with a budget surplus. Not sure how 14 will finish up, but it just goes to show that what is typical in government, where you spend every dime you get so you get more in your budget next year. We've changed that culture in city government. If they're able to deliver the service that they're required to deliver at a high level and not spend every dime and have that money come back to you, the taxpayer, or help us pay off one-time expenses, we think that's a better policy overall. As Mayor Warch mentioned, the only city in the history of Alaska to ever get a AAA bond rating. We got it last year. We've maintained it through this year. And in mid-October, in about a week or two, we'll hear from Standard & Poor's whether or not we're still a AAA. We're confident we are. But we're also looking at our other rating agency, Fitch. they have us at a AA+. Fitch is a little more stringent on some categories than Standard & Poor's, but we made a presentation to them back in New York a few weeks ago, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that Fitch is going to join Standard & Poor's, and that'll put us into a really elite company. Right now, Standard & Poor's rates 4,000 cities in America. Only 300 have a AAA bond rating, and we're one of them. So it is a great success story because they look at your whole financial management from A to Z. How are you managing other people's money? And we take it very seriously. One quick note, Joe Morrison's here. He's been managing the 49th State Angel Fund, which is an allotment from the U.S. Treasury of $13.2 million designed to spur business growth and job growth through the application of venture capital. And Joe, over the last 2 years, has been working with different groups, new venture funds that have been formed in Anchorage, and we've literally placed almost all that money now, and it is going to be an economic stimulus that'll reverberate for many, many years through this community as that money matches investment money from venture capital funds and from individual businesses. And really is a great shot in the arm for the local entrepreneur community. So, Joe, thank you for your hard work on that. It's a great success story. I told you that if we'd kept on the same growth path, we'd be spending about $100 million more than we are today. And where would that money have come from? Well, it would have come from you, from property tax, essentially. But we've implemented some strategies that made sure that that money was off the table, because I guarantee you in the political world, if the money was on the table, it would have got spent. And I'm not sure you would have seen any greater results from that spending. We refinance debt. One of the things our finance department is always looking at is how can we get better interest rates on our various debt instruments, and they're constantly working it. They've saved over $20 million for the taxpayers. We put utility payments back under the tax cap, crowding out property tax. And then when you tax below the cap, you actually set a new level of what you can actually tax the next year. So that combination has been just about $110 million total. So again, had it been on the table, it would have been spent, and I guarantee you would not have really noticed the difference in your community. Capital budget, same thing. Last year, you guys approved $27 million in bonds. We got about $81 million in state grants. A lot of those were for facility improvements. And as you know, typically when we do bonds at the local level in particular, it's basics, it's roads, it's parks, it's trails, and it's our facilities. And all told, over the 5-year history, the investment in Anchorage by both you, the voters, and the state and our lawmakers that have been very good about being conscientious to see that Anchorage gets its fair share, has totaled, if you add up the bonds and the state grants, almost $750 million invested in our community. And again, I think we've done a really good job investing that wisely. Some of the things, of course, as we mentioned, roads are always top of the list, and we've got a new program now at Public Works that if you ever want to see what's going on in your community, whether it's roads or Anchorage Water and Wastewater, MLMP, any of the utilities and the work they're doing, there's the new Invista system, it's called, and it maps all the Public Works projects. And so if you ever want to know what's going on in your neighborhood, you can go online and find that out. One of the things that's been really exciting is when we came into office, our parks were actually rated a D. We had the neighborhoods of every single neighborhood park come out, visit the park, tell us what they thought, and it was really shocking to find what the local neighbors' perception was of their own local parks. And quite frankly, some of them are rated F, some C, some better, but the overall average was a D. And so we made a commitment that quality of life in Anchorage relies on having a good, vital park system. And with our partnership with the Parks Foundation, and again, partnership with you, the voters, and with our legislature, we've been able to put amazing amount of resource into park rehabilitation, over 100 park improvement projects, 460,000 volunteer hours, the youth employment in the park program, where young kids in high school are getting their first job ever and doing something constructive for their community. It's really been a win-win. We'll continue that in 2015. We've got 8 more neighborhood park projects on the drawing board, about $1.5 million in additional investment. So we're going to keep that rolling. Some of the highlights, of course, if you're a user of the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail, completely repaving 7 miles of that trail, the Laney Fleischer Chester Creek Trail, 6 miles to be redone. And then next year, we were hoping to get it done this year, kind of a little setback. We have a couple bridges, one that failed, and a couple others that are not in great shape. And everybody, unfortunately, thinks sometimes we just wave a wand and you replace a bridge, but they do have to be designed, engineered. You have to go out to bid. I mean, there's a process in government to get these things done, and it's not always as quick as we'd like, but we're going to get all of our bridges upgraded as well. Facility improvements, this is a great success story for our Project 80s facilities. We've talked in the past about, we're always investing a little bit in them to try and keep them up, but, after 30 years, these facilities really had some big challenges, and the legislature really stepped up to the plate. Sullivan Arena, which obviously, where's Mr. Coffey? The hockey community in this town is a very active, vibrant community, and the Sullivan Arena, that's the main users are the hockey teams, both the Aces and UAA. And so we made a commitment that we were going to improve this facility, and so with some good nudging by the hockey community, we were able to actually go beyond what we thought we could do. The new scoreboard, if you haven't seen the new scoreboard and sound system, it is state-of-the-art, it is fantastic. We're going to have new seating, new paint, new dashboards, new glass, new boilers. It is going to be a rejuvenated facility, and the managers of the facility are putting in new healthy choice options for food, so it's not just all the fries and the corn dogs. There's going to be a really nice selection of some good modern food choices. The other rinks, of course, Boki, Dempsey Anderson, Harry McDonald, all getting upgrades as well in the millions of dollars, including new ice with the new CO2 ice making equipment. The Freon systems are outdated, and they're, quite frankly, can be dangerous when they get outdated, so replacing with the CO2 systems. Other facility improvements, you can read those, but again, our other Project 80s facilities, the PAC, the museum, the library, we built a new library in Mountain View over the last 5 years, so again, a good story for Anchorage and the investment in our community. Obviously, public safety, want to make sure that that investment is solid as well. We've built, just in the last 2 years, 2 new fire stations. We've got 2 more new ones coming on board in Mountain View and Huffman, and making sure they have the best equipment to do their job, new ambulances, new fire engines. We want to make sure our first responders have good equipment, and we've made that commitment to them. Same on the police side. One of the interesting stories in Anchorage is, crime has been on the gradual decline. The 5-year average of crime in Anchorage over the last 5 years is lower than the previous 5 years, and that's the kind of trend you want. There's some areas that are trending up a little bit, others are down, but you look at the average because that's what tells you what your trend is. You might have an anomaly year, but with the police, obviously, we're wanting to beef up our ranks a bit. We've got new officers coming on board. In fact, tomorrow there's a graduation at the Wilda Marston Theater for 20 new officers that just graduated. They'll go into field training, and if they survive field training, they'll become full-time police officers. So it's we made a commitment. We want to get those numbers up a little bit. 2014, there was a lot of incentive for some of the older officers to retire with some financial incentives, and so we've got to make that up with the new guys. Here kind of gives you the story. Overall, between 2004 and 2008, you can see the crime per 100,000. It is down in the period 2009 through 2013. And 5 of the 7 major categories are down. Murder's down. Aggravated assault is down. Unfortunately, the rape statistics, there's just no improvement. And it is so frustrating as a leader of a community where public safety is your #1 priority to know that this statistic is not improving. And it's just, it's intractable, it seems like sometimes. Obviously, alcohol plays a large role. We're getting a lot of folks from rural Alaska who are unfamiliar with urban settings and how to be safe in an urban setting. And so it's just, we have to continue the education. We're going to keep fighting this. Some of the other stats: burglary's down, robbery's up slightly, theft and larceny down, motor vehicle theft down. So 5 of the 7 categories looking good, and that's, again, the trends you want. The other thing is, in addition to the public investment in the community, we've seen significant investment from the private sector as well. We've all seen the big stores coming on board, Bass Pro Shops, certainly the new Cabela's, Outlets of Alaska Mall. Everybody like outlet stores? If you didn't know, that's coming to C Street and 100th probably sometime next year, so pretty exciting if you want to do some good discount shopping with name brands. We've seen Ceres' new building going up on Fireweed. There's a new Clutina Commercial Center out in Eagle River. And again, renovations to Alaska Regional, just on and on. I could list 20 more projects on here, and that's just the kind of the private sector. But if you look at the nonprofit public sector, new facilities as well. Well, first I want to, last year I kind of showed you a schematic of what the TDX new project would look like. They bought the National Guard Armory that we owned, the city owned, on Spenard Road. paid $4.5 million. That money came into the city. This property now comes on the tax rolls, and they've built a parking garage. They're going to have their new office building, and ultimately a new hotel where the Coast Hotel is. So this is a pretty fun project because it's aviation themed. They've got big airplane engines on the outside of the buildings, and they'll actually be housing some of the Alaska Aviation Museum's planes because they're busting at the seams, and so in their space they're going to actually have some of the aircraft as well. So that's pretty cool. But the nonprofit community is also making big investments, and a lot of you folks in this room, you do deserve credit because you've participated either on the board or fundraising in some capacity for some of these things, the blood bank, the Y, the new Covenant House. I see Chancellor Case's here, the new UA Sports Center and the new engineering building. If you haven't been out to the Sports Center, it is really a fantastic facility, and I've had a chance to go to a couple games already, and under Chancellor Case's leadership and the regents, and again, the community getting supporting behind these facilities, they're coming to fruition, so pretty cool. Then, of course, there's the brand new tennis facility that the Alaska Tennis Association, wait, what happened? Oh, it blew up. Well, you can't win them all. So after a very rainy high school season, I think the Alaska Tennis Association is probably going to try again for at least something to cover some courts so you can play in the rain, even if it's not a complete public tennis facility. So, lifetime sport. I think the communities may be ready for it. Ship Creek Waterfront, Jim Ferguson's here. He's head of our Planning and Zoning Commission. They approved the Ship Creek plan. It went to the Assembly. The Assembly has approved the plan. So now what we have is a framework for truly developing one of the last undeveloped resources in Anchorage, which is Ship Creek area, where we first rose up from the tent city in the mud to an area now that, as the architects have said, and again, I repeat this a lot, but we're a city on the water with no waterfront. And they saw the potential there coming from places like Boston and Korea, where they've developed waterfronts out of railroad yards and unused tracks, that they think the potential for a waterfront in Anchorage with the vista we have behind it to the east as greatest potential of any place they've been. So we have a start, we have a plan, and that's where you start. Speaking of the waterfront, of course, the Port of Anchorage is one of the number one things on my list for the last 4 or 5 years to get turned around, going in the right direction. We had some news from the federal government that was, I guess, gratifying in the sense that we knew that the Maritime Administration had not properly managed the port project. The Inspector General of the Department of Transportation concluded that MERA had essentially not fulfilled their duties in any category of project management. No quality control, no quality assurance, no benchmarks, no person on site to make sure everything was going well. So that's, I guess the good news is it clears the path for us to take over the management. CH2M Hill, which is the top-rated project management firm in the world, is now managing the port project. We've got about $130 million in hand, which will get us through planning, engineering, and some of the removal of the work that has to be undone. And we're estimating probably about another $300 to $400 million to finish the project, which is scaled down. It's going to be a renewal of the port. Steve Rebuffo is here, our new port director. He's been on board, I think, since June as the new port director, and under his leadership, we're going to get this done. I may not be here, but hopefully Steve will be here and can continue and get this thing finished. It's the most important port in the state, as we all know. The Responsible Labor Act is up for a vote on November 4th. I urge you all to vote yes to retain it. It's kind of an odd vote, even though it's a referendum, and you might think that you're voting no to well, anyway, it's a yes vote. Yes says, well, it's funny because like with SB 21, you voted no to keep the tax law. In this case, you vote yes to keep AO 37. We've now negotiated 6 labor contracts. The tenets of AO 37 are contained almost entirely in every one of these new contracts, negotiated by the union leadership, ratified by the members, and it really just illustrates that if they really had a problem with what the law says, they wouldn't be ratifying the contracts we've negotiated, because again, AO 37 is virtually contained in every single one of them. And you can read through what it does. I mean, just really standard stuff. We're standardizing benefits and holidays and overtime. We're making sure that the compensation in these contracts doesn't exceed what's going on in the local economy. And it's just important that we don't have contracts that really are out of line with what's happening in your community. Jack's going to get up and stand behind me here in just a second because I'm going to go over 1 o'clock. The Arts Commission, we're moving to AEDC. Arts is an economic opportunity. We're going to let them take the lead on that. Centennial is happening. We had a great film premiere. I see Flip Todd is here. He's helping edit and produce the Book of Anchorage that Charles Wolforth is writing. Tons of projects, and you can go to anchoragecentennial.org and catch up on all that. Final thing, we're bragging about Anchorage all the time. You can see all the accolades we've received. Some people saying the 6th best town, 9th best city to live, on and on. So very proud of all that. Bottom line is, thank you all very, very much for investing in your community. It's been a great 5.5 years to serve as your mayor, humbled by that opportunity, and I think that we're going to leave the city in better shape than we found it, and that should always be the goal. Thank you.